As I lay in my hospital bed, I could feel life slipping away. My body had grown weak from years of overwork, but I had no regrets, or so I thought. I had spent the last 40 years of my life by his side, managing our home, raising his son, and supporting his career. Mason had once been a nobody, an idealistic young man with a dream of moving back to the city, escaping our rural life. I had believed in him, in us, and sacrificed everything to help him succeed. My eyelids fluttered and I took in the sterile ceiling. There was a dull ache in my chest, not just from the disease that had ravaged my body, but from something deeper, something more painful than any physical ailment: betrayal. I turned my head slightly, my vision blurred, and saw Mason standing by the doorway, his silhouette sharp against the evening light streaming through the window. Beside him stood a woman, her hair in perfect waves cascading down her shoulders, adorned in gold jewelry and a bright red dress. Ava Young, the widow he had met on one of his countryside assignments. I couldn't remember the last time Mason looked at me the way he looked at her now, like she was the sun itself. Summoning what little strength I had left, I whispered, "What is she doing here?" Mason's eyes flicked to me with disdain. "I thought it was obvious," he sneered. "She's moving in. You've been bedridden for months, and frankly, I'm done taking care of a useless old hag." My heart hammered painfully against my ribs. "Mason, after everything?" Ava laughed softly, stepping closer to him and pressing her manicured fingers against his chest. "It's time you let go, Emma. You've occupied the leader's wife position for over 4 decades. Isn't that enough? Your time is over. You should be grateful you even had it." I wanted to scream, to lash out, but my body wouldn't move. I had spent years at his side, supporting his rise from a humble village worker to a prominent official. I remembered the long nights I stayed up, proofreading his speeches, making his tea, comforting him when he doubted himself. I remembered giving up my spot to return to the city so he could go in my place. Mason scoffed, eyes cold and indifferent. "If I had known I'd become a leader, I would have chosen someone worthy from the start. You were just a convenient choice back then, meek, diligent, and naive. I didn't realize I'd end up stuck with such a dull woman." Tears pricked my eyes, but I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I forced myself to breathe steadily, ignoring the stabbing pain in my chest. "You used me," I rasped, each word a struggle. He shrugged. "I took what was offered. You were the one who insisted on giving me your return spot, remember? You thought you were being noble, but you just handed your life away like a fool." Ava smiled, leaning closer to him. She really thought love would last forever. Isn't that just precious? The memory of that fateful decision flashed through my mind, the day the return list was announced. I had been overjoyed when my name was called, but Mason had looked so dejected, so defeated. I didn't want him to lose hope, so I gave it up, my one chance to pursue my passion in agricultural innovation. I gave it all up for him. My son, the boy I had raised as my own, entered the room, eyes glinting with excitement. "Dad, is it true? Are you and Aunt Ava getting married?" I looked at him, my heart breaking anew. "Liam." He didn't even look at me. Instead, he embraced Ava, calling her Mom. Mason's arm wrapped around Ava's waist, pulling her close. "I'm done waiting for you to die, Emma. We're getting married next month. Just hurry up and go peacefully, will you?" My fingers curled into the thin hospital sheet. For the first time in my life, I felt something other than love or dedication. I felt pure, unbridled rage. I had been faithful, selfless, and devoted. I had done everything for them, yet they discarded me as if I were nothing more than a broken tool. With a surge of adrenaline, I pushed myself up, ignoring the searing pain. "You'll regret this," I whispered, my voice trembling but fierce. Ava smirked. "Regret? You should regret wasting your whole life on a man who never loved you." Mason leaned down, his voice a low, mocking whisper. "Just die already." In that moment, something snapped within me. I grabbed the fruit knife from the tray next to my bed and lunged. The blade pierced his chest and he staggered back, eyes wide with disbelief. Blood soaked his shirt and Ava screamed, clutching at him. Liam stared in horror, frozen in place. Darkness swallowed me whole, and the last thing I remembered was the sound of Mason's gurgling breath and the metallic scent of blood. When I opened my eyes again, I was not in a hospital bed. I was not surrounded by doctors or the police. I was standing in the middle of a sunlit field, the familiar smell of soil and fresh crops filling my senses. Confused, I looked down at my hands, young, unblemished, and steady. I was wearing my old work clothes, the ones I had worn during the rural re-education program. A voice called out from behind me. Emma. There you are. Mason's about to propose. Everyone's gathering by the barn. I turned slowly and there stood my old friend Rachel, beaming. My mind reeled. How was this possible? I was back in the past, decades before Mason's betrayal, before I gave up my return spot. The realization hit me like a thunderclap. I had been given a second chance, a chance to rewrite my fate. I clenched my fists, determination hardening my resolve. This time I would not give up my dreams for anyone. I would not sacrifice my happiness for a man who didn't deserve it. And I would not, under any circumstances, let Mason Blake ruin my life again. With a slow, cold smile, I whispered to myself, Mason, you won't even see it coming. The sun continued to shine brightly on the field as I began my journey toward the barn, where Mason awaited, still the same charming liar I once loved. This time I would be the one writing the story, my story. The path to the barn was well-trodden, framed by wildflowers and tall grasses swaying in the breeze. My heart thudded in my chest, not with the nervous excitement I had once felt for Mason, but with cold, calculating determination. I had been given a second chance, and this time, I wasn't going to waste it on love that would only end in betrayal. I could see the villagers gathered near the barn, a sense of festive anticipation in the air. My past self would have been thrilled, blushing and giddy, eager to hear Mason's grand proposal. Now, with the clarity of a lifetime of pain and betrayal, I couldn't help but feel disgusted by the memory. As I approached the barn, I caught sight of Mason looking dapper and confident, his eyes scanning the crowd. Next to him stood Ava Young, already hanging on his arm with a smug smile, oblivious to the chaos she would one day cause. My stomach churned, but I swallowed the bitterness. Not yet. I couldn't afford to make mistakes. This time I would keep my feelings and intentions hidden until the right moment. I needed to play the role of the naive, devoted Emma for just a little while longer. Rachel rushed over to me, grabbing my hands. There you are. I thought you were going to miss the big moment. Her smile was genuine and I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. She had always defended me, even when Mason's true colors were revealed. I squeezed her hands back, forcing a smile. I wouldn't miss it for the world, I replied, my voice steady and bright. Rachel eyed me suspiciously. Are you feeling okay? Look different. More confident. I gave a small laugh, brushing off her concern. Just nervous, I guess. Before she could respond, Mason's voice boomed over the gathered crowd. Thank you, everyone, for coming here today. His tone was deep and commanding, just as I remembered. I watched him closely, my heart cold. He had always been good at playing the part of the devoted lover when it suited him. I've known Emma for years, he continued, gesturing toward me. She's always been there for me, loyal, hardworking, supportive. Today I want to make it official. He moved forward, reaching for my hand. I let him take it, feeling the familiar warmth, but this time it didn't make my heart flutter. It made me feel trapped. Emma, he said, looking deeply into my eyes. Will you marry me? The crowd erupted in applause and cheers, and Rachel wiped away a happy tear. I looked at Mason, forcing a soft smile. Yes, I whispered, just loud enough for him to hear. His face broke into a grin and he pulled me into a tight embrace. I felt suffocated, but I didn't pull away. Not yet. He needed to think I was still his. Still the obedient, devoted Emma who would give up anything for his happiness. Ava's face twisted in barely concealed jealousy, but she quickly masked it with a forced smile, clapping along with the others. I knew that she wasn't happy. Even back then she had set her eyes on Mason, seeing his potential to become a leader. Little did she know this time I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me destroyed. The villagers congratulated us and Mason kept his arm around me, beaming as if he'd won a prize. I caught snippets of conversations as people whispered about how perfect we looked together. My stomach churned. They had no idea that the man they admired would one day betray me without a second thought. As the crowd dispersed, Mason leaned close, his lips brushing against my ear. You made me the happiest man alive, Emma. I forced myself to smile. I'm happy too, I lied. Rachel pulled me aside as Mason was pulled into a conversation with the village elders. You seem off, she whispered, glancing over her shoulder to make sure Mason wasn't listening. Are you sure you're okay? You don't have to marry him just because it's expected. I looked at her, my heart swelling with gratitude. In my past life, I had been too blinded by love to see how much she cared for me. I placed a hand on her shoulder. Rachel, you're a good friend. I'm fine really. I just have a lot on my mind. She nodded, still unsure but didn't push. I knew I would need her support later, but for now I had to maintain the illusion. That evening, after the celebration had died down, I sat alone on the porch of my small house, staring at the stars. In my past life, I would have been too busy dreaming about my future with Mason to notice the warning signs. I would have been preparing for our life together, making plans to support his career and dreaming of starting a family. Now I knew better. I was deep in thought when I heard footsteps behind me. I didn't have to turn to know it was Mason. He sat next to me, his presence almost suffocating. I didn't think you'd be out here alone, he said, his voice low and smooth. Everyone's been asking about you. You're the talk of the village. I kept my gaze on the sky. I needed some air. He reached out, brushing his fingers through my hair. I resisted the urge to pull away. You really do love me, don't you? He asked, almost as if he couldn't believe it. I turned to him, keeping my face soft and adoring. Of course I do. I always have. His smile widened and he kissed my forehead. Good. I was worried that maybe you were having second thoughts. I wouldn't change my mind about you, I said, masking my disgust with a gentle smile. He looked relieved. You're too good for me, Emma. Sometimes I wonder how I got so lucky. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing bitterly. Lucky? He didn't realize how true that was. He had been lucky that I had loved him enough to give up everything for him once. This time his luck had run out. The next few weeks were a blur of preparations for the wedding. I stayed compliant and sweet, playing the perfect fiancé while quietly gathering information. I needed to secure my position for the future without tipping Mason off. My plan was simple: secure the return spot to the city on my own merit. I wouldn't make the mistake of sacrificing my dreams again. One afternoon, as I was gathering herbs near the outskirts of the village, I heard Ava's voice. She was talking to one of the other women from the village, her tone haughty and proud. Once Mason becomes a leader, things will change around here, she boasted. Emma is just the placeholder until then. I'll be the one by his side in the city. The woman laughed nervously. But he's marrying Emma. Ava scoffed. Please. Mason just needs her for now. Once he's promoted, he'll drop her like a bad habit. I'll make sure of it. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from confronting her. Let her think she had the upper hand. The more they underestimated me, the easier it would be to take back what was mine. Walking back to the village, I couldn't help but smirk. Ava's arrogance was her weakness, just as Mason's ambition was his downfall. They thought they were invincible together, but this time I would be the one to walk away victorious. I wouldn't just survive. I would thrive. And when Mason realized he had lost everything, it would already be too late. This time I would protect my future, and I would watch Mason destroy his own. The following days were filled with wedding preparations, and the entire village was bustling with excitement. I played my role to perfection, demure, loving, and deeply in love with Mason. I couldn't afford to show any sign of doubt or hesitation, not while I was carefully laying the groundwork for what would come next. Every morning I would help with the farm work, feigning my usual cheerfulness, but my mind was always racing. I knew that Mason had big plans, and his ambition would lead him to seek the return spot to the city at any cost. I couldn't let him use me again. This time I would make sure the opportunity belonged to me. One morning, as I was tending to the vegetable patch, Rachel appeared at my side, carrying a basket of fresh herbs. She looked at me with a puzzled expression. You've been working so hard lately, she noted. Aren't you supposed to be preparing for the wedding? I wiped my hands on my apron and smiled. I just want to make sure everything's in order. You know how Mason likes things neat and organized. Rachel frowned. Still, you've been different since the proposal. Are you really happy, Emma? I hesitated, but I couldn't afford to break character. I placed a hand on her shoulder. Of course I am. I guess I'm just overwhelmed. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't press further. I knew she was worried about me, and it tugged at my heart. In my past life, I had been so absorbed in Mason that I hadn't realized how many true friends I had pushed away. After Rachel left, I walked to the nearby stream to wash the dirt from my hands. As I knelt by the water, I saw my reflection, youthful, determined, and no longer the weary, defeated woman from my previous life. I traced the outline of my face, reminding myself that I was not the same naive girl who had given up her dreams for a man who didn't deserve her love. That afternoon, as I was returning home, I heard Mason's voice coming from behind the community hall. Curious, I ducked behind the building, peering around the corner. There he was, speaking with Ava. "Are you really going to marry her?" Ava's voice was laced with irritation. Mason laughed, a confident, self-satisfied sound. "Of course. Emma's the perfect cover for now. Once I get the return spot, it'll be easy to ditch her. The elders respect her family, and marrying her just makes me look more responsible. Once I'm promoted, I'll divorce her and bring you to the city." Ava giggled, running her hand along his arm. "You better. I'm tired of seeing that little country mouse act like she belongs by your side." Mason pulled her close, whispering something I couldn't hear. I clenched my fists, the fury burning through my veins. I had been right, he was still the same selfish, manipulative man even in this life. Silently, I retreated before they could notice me. I needed to think. I needed a plan. That evening, Mason visited my house, bringing a bouquet of wildflowers. I plastered on a sweet smile as I accepted them, ignoring the urge to throw them back in his face. He wrapped an arm around my waist, guiding me to sit beside him on the wooden bench by the window. "You seem tired," he observed, feigning concern. "I've just been busy preparing for the wedding," I replied softly. He kissed my forehead and I resisted the urge to push him away. "You don't have to work so hard," he cooed. "Once we're married, things will be easier." I smiled up at him. "You're right. I just want to make everything perfect." He seemed pleased with my response, leaning in to kiss me. I allowed it, though my stomach twisted. If he noticed my hesitation, he didn't show it. After a few moments, he pulled back, his expression serious. "I spoke with the village leader today," he said. "The return list will be finalized in a few weeks. My name's sure to be on it." I tilted my head, playing dumb. "Are you sure?" His grip tightened around my waist. "Of course. I've done everything right. Networking, building alliances. I just need to make sure that nothing jeopardizes my chances." I nodded, keeping my face passive. "That's wonderful news." He smiled smugly. "And once we're in the city, life will be different. Will be important. You'll be the leader's wife, and I'll make sure you're well taken care of." I almost laughed. He really thought I would still be around when that day came. The following day, I began to put my plan into motion. I knew that I couldn't simply take the return spot away from him without good reason. I needed to prove that I was more valuable to the community. I started volunteering more around the village, helping the elders with their crops and organizing community events. I taught the younger children basic agricultural techniques and introduced new methods to improve crop yields. My skills and dedication didn't go unnoticed. People began praising me, thanking me for my hard work, and calling me a blessing to the village. One afternoon, while I was demonstrating a new irrigation technique, the village leader approached me, his gaze thoughtful. "Emma, your innovations have really made a difference," he said. "The council has taken notice." I bowed my head humbly. "I'm just trying to help where I can." He smiled warmly. "We're discussing the return list soon. I'll be putting in a good word for you." My heart skipped a beat. This was exactly what I needed. I thanked him and continued my work, careful not to show too much excitement. That evening, I found Mason pacing outside my house, his expression tense. As soon as he saw me, he rushed over, gripping my shoulders. "What are you doing?" he hissed. I blinked innocently. "What do you mean?" "You've been working yourself to death, making yourself look good. People are talking about how dedicated you are. Why are you trying so hard?" I shrugged, feigning confusion. "I just want to help the village." He sneered, his grip tightening. "You're trying to overshadow me, aren't you? You're making me look lazy." I forced myself to look hurt. "I'm just doing what I always do, helping. Why would I want to overshadow you?" His eyes narrowed, suspicious but unsure. I let a few tears well up, hoping it would disarm him. Finally, he sighed, loosening his hold. "Just don't get carried away. I'm the one who's going to the city. You're my fiancé. Remember that." I nodded meekly. "Of course, Mason." He seemed satisfied and left, muttering to himself. I watched him go, wiping away the fake tears. He was already feeling threatened, and that was good. I needed him to doubt his position, to fear that I might take what he believed was his. Later that night, Rachel stopped by, a worried expression on her face. "Emma, I heard Mason was angry with you earlier. Is everything okay?" I forced a smile. "It's nothing. He's just stressed about the upcoming selection." Rachel bit her lip. "You deserve better, you know. You're so much more than just his support system. You could make something of yourself." Her words hit me harder than she knew. I squeezed her hand. "Thank you, Rachel. You don't know how much that means to me." She smiled gently. "Just don't let him take advantage of you. Promise me." I looked at her, the resolve hardening in my chest. "I promise." As Rachel left, I looked out the window at the darkening sky. The return list was approaching and I needed to secure my position. This time, Mason wouldn't be the one leaving the village. He could stay right here with his lies and his arrogance. I would move on without him, and when he realized what he had lost, it would be too late. This was just the beginning of my plan. A plan that would see Mason's ambitions crumble at his feet while I took back my life and my future. As the days passed, I kept up my act of being the perfect, dutiful fiancé. Mason seemed to have calmed down after our last confrontation, but I knew him too well to believe his peace would last. His ambition was a ravenous beast, and I had no intention of feeding it any longer. My days were spent working with the villagers, teaching new methods and organizing small improvements in the farming techniques. I deliberately kept a low profile when Mason was around, allowing him to bask in his perceived superiority. Meanwhile, I built alliances quietly, gaining the villagers' trust and admiration. One afternoon, while I was helping repair the roof of the community center, the village leader, Mr. Connors, approached me with a smile. "Emma," he said warmly, "you've truly made a difference here. Your hard work and dedication have inspired everyone. I've already put in a recommendation for you on the return list." I feigned surprise, my eyes widening. "Me? Really? I don't know what to say." He chuckled. "It's well deserved. The community needs leaders who not only think about themselves but also uplift others. You've shown that spirit." My heart leapt, but I kept my excitement under control. "Thank you, Mr. Connors. I just want to help the village prosper." He patted my shoulder before moving on to supervise the workers. I watched him go, my mind whirling. The groundwork was set, but I still needed one final move to secure my spot. That evening, I went to the communal well where villagers often gathered to talk and exchange news. As expected, Mason was there, boasting to a group of young men about his future plans. "When I return to the city," Mason declared, "I'll make sure to bring a few of you along once I establish myself. I can't forget where I came from." The men nodded eagerly, feeding off his false generosity. I stepped forward, pretending to be shy. "Mason," I called softly. "Can I talk to you?" He turned, his expression hardening. "What is it, Emma?" I glanced at the men and bit my lip, acting nervous. "Just, I overheard something today. I didn't want to say it in front of everyone." Curiosity flickered across his face. "Speak." I lowered my voice. "Some of the village council members were discussing the return list. They mentioned that they're looking for someone with practical skills, someone who's made a tangible impact recently." His expression shifted, suspicion creeping in. "And?" I shrugged, feigning ignorance. "I just thought you'd want to know. They seemed really impressed with the new irrigation system I helped set up." His jaw tightened, but he forced a smile. "Of course they did. You've been busy lately, haven't you?" I nodded, keeping my face innocent. "I just want to make things better here before we leave. Isn't that what you always wanted?" He grunted noncommittally and turned away, his shoulders tense. I knew the seed of doubt had been planted. Now I just needed it to grow. That night, as I was preparing to sleep, Mason barged into my house, his face flushed with anger. "Are you trying to steal my spot?" he hissed, slamming the door behind him. I feigned confusion, sitting up on my bed. "What are you talking about?" He advanced, towering over me. "Don't play dumb, Emma. I've been hearing things, people talking about how you're the village's new rising star. You've been undermining me." I shook my head, letting tears well up. "Mason, no. I was just trying to help. You know I'd never do anything to hurt you." He grabbed my shoulders, his grip bruising. "You're making me look bad. Everyone's talking about you like you're some kind of hero. I'm the one who's supposed to be leaving this place. Not you." His anger was palpable and I had to remind myself not to push too hard. If I seemed too strong, too calculating, he would become even more suspicious. I let myself cry, my voice trembling. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen. I just wanted to be useful while you were busy." He let go of me, his frustration simmering down. "Just stay out of it. Let me handle the leadership stuff. You're making things more complicated." I nodded meekly, wiping my eyes. "I just wanted to support you." He looked at me, his expression softening. "You're just too eager to help. Leave the important things to me from now on." I watched him leave, closing the door behind him with a heavy thud. I knew I had to be careful now. Mason was more paranoid than I anticipated. But that also meant he was worried. He could sense that his hold on the return spot was slipping, and that fear would be his undoing. The next day, I visited Mr. Connors again, offering to help organize a community celebration to thank everyone for their hard work during the harvest. I knew Mason would be too proud to join in, claiming that such tasks were beneath him. As expected, he scoffed when I mentioned it. "Why bother with that nonsense?" he sneered. "They're peasants, Emma. A little praise won't change their lives." I didn't argue. Instead, I spent the next few days coordinating the event, gathering food donations, and arranging for a local musician to play. The villagers were delighted, especially when I made sure to highlight everyone's contributions. It wasn't about me, it was about the community, and they loved it. On the day of the celebration, Mason stayed on the outskirts, sulking as the villagers danced and shared stories. At one point, Mr. Connors raised a toast to me, thanking me for bringing everyone together. I saw Mason's jaw clench, but he didn't approach. That evening, Rachel found me, her eyes shining with pride. "Emma, that was beautiful. You really brought everyone together. I haven't seen the village this happy in ages." I hugged her, grateful for her support. "It's not just me. Everyone worked hard." She smiled knowingly. "You're too humble. You deserve this recognition." Later, as I was cleaning up, I noticed Mason lingering near the well, deep in thought. Ava joined him, wrapping her arms around his waist. I stayed hidden in the shadows, listening. "This isn't working," Mason muttered. "Emma's getting too popular. If the village picks her over me, my chances of returning are ruined." Ava scoffed. "Then get rid of her. Do whatever it takes. I didn't leave my comfortable life to end up stuck in this backwater. I want the city life you promised." Mason hesitated, his fingers twitching. "If I push her too hard, people will notice. I need to find a way to make her step back willingly." Ava's voice turned icy. "Then make her look like a fool. Make her seem untrustworthy. You're good at that." Mason nodded slowly, his eyes darkening with a plan. I slipped away before they could notice me, my mind racing. He was planning to ruin my reputation, to make me look incapable or dishonest. I had to counter his move before he made it. A plan began to form in my mind, one that would not only protect my position but also reveal his true colors. I wouldn't let Mason manipulate me again. This time I would pull the strings, and when the trap snapped shut, he wouldn't even know what hit him. As I lay in bed that night, my resolve hardened. Mason wanted to play dirty? Then I would beat him at his own game. This time I wouldn't just survive. I would come out victorious, leaving him trapped in the mess he created. The morning sun filtered through the window, casting golden patterns on the floor. I had hardly slept, my mind running through every possible scenario. Mason was plotting to discredit me, and I knew I had to act swiftly. My earlier plan to quietly gain favor was no longer enough. I needed to expose Mason before he could turn the village against me. After breakfast, I made my way to the village leader's house. Mr. Connors was outside, discussing the upcoming selection process with some of the elders. As soon as he spotted me, he smiled warmly. "Emma, just the person I wanted to see," he greeted. "We were discussing the selection criteria and your name came up more than once. Your contributions have made a significant impact." I forced a modest smile. "I'm just happy to help. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something important." He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Go on." I glanced at the other elders, ensuring I had their attention. "I've heard some troubling things. I don't want to accuse anyone unfairly, but it seems that someone might be trying to manipulate the selection process." The men exchanged curious glances. Mr. Connors gestured for me to continue. "I overheard Mason talking to Ava. He mentioned trying to discredit me so that his name would remain at the top of the list. He's planning to spread rumors that I'm only pretending to help the village to secure the return spot. The village leader's expression hardened. That's a serious accusation. Are you sure? I nodded, letting my voice waver slightly as if I were struggling with guilt. I didn't want to believe it at first. But Mason's been acting strangely and he's been getting more aggressive. I just thought you should know in case something happens. One of the elders, Mr. Henley, stroked his beard thoughtfully. Mason has always been ambitious, but we will keep an eye on him. Thank you for being honest, Emma. I thanked them, hoping my warning would plant seeds of doubt. The next step was to make Mason reveal his true colors without directly confronting him. I needed him to think he was still in control while I tightened the noose around his ambitions. Later that day, I visited Rachel, who was chopping vegetables in her garden. She looked up and waved. "Hey Emma. You look like you've been through a battle," she joked. I gave her a weary smile. "It feels that way. Rachel, can I ask you something?" She wiped her hands and gave me her full attention. "Of course." Taking a deep breath, I leaned closer. "Do you remember how Mason's been acting lately? I'm starting to feel like, I don't know, that he's trying to sabotage me." Her eyes widened. "Why would he do that?" I hesitated, letting the tension build. "I heard him talking to Ava about making me look bad to secure his spot. He thinks I'm getting too much attention from the village." Rachel's face darkened. "That snake. I knew something was off about him. You've been working so hard to help everyone and he's threatened by it." I nodded slowly. "I just don't know how to prove it. I can't just accuse him without evidence." Rachel placed a hand on my shoulder. "Leave it to me. I'll keep an eye on him. If he's planning something, we'll catch him red-handed." Her loyalty warmed my heart. I knew that if anyone could subtly gather information, it was Rachel. I couldn't directly involve too many people, but Rachel's observant nature would be invaluable. The next evening, Rachel came running to my house, slightly out of breath. "Emma, I found out something," she whispered, dragging me inside. She pulled out a folded piece of paper from her pocket. "I found this in the community center. Mason was meeting with some of the younger men, and they were planning to announce at the next council meeting that your irrigation system caused crop damage." My heart pounded. "What? That's a lie." Rachel nodded, fuming. "Exactly. I checked the fields myself. Your system actually improved the yield. He's spreading false rumors to make you look incompetent." I clenched my fists, anger boiling inside me. "We can't let him do this." Rachel grinned mischievously. "I have an idea. Let's use his own lies against him." The next day, I deliberately stayed away from the fields, giving Mason the opportunity to put his plan into motion. I needed him to think I was oblivious. Meanwhile, Rachel gathered the younger men at the site, pretending to inspect the crops. As expected, Mason appeared, acting concerned. "I heard the crops are wilting. Emma's new irrigation system might have been too harsh on them," he announced loudly. One of the younger men looked skeptical. "But the yields have increased. I saw it myself." Mason waved a dismissive hand. "Temporary improvement. The soil is losing nutrients. We need to report this to the council before it's too late." Rachel, ever the actress, gasped dramatically. "Oh no. Are you saying Emma's project is failing?" Mason nodded, eyes gleaming. "I warned her not to meddle without consulting experienced farmers. Now it's backfiring." Rachel gave him a sly smile. "Good thing I asked Mr. Connors to check on the fields yesterday. He made notes on the yield and said it's the best we've had in years. You should tell him about this issue, to clarify." Mason's face blanched. He hadn't expected the village leader to have already inspected the crops. He stammered, trying to come up with an excuse. "I just meant, sometimes it looks good at first, but long-term." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Maybe we should all go together and report your concerns to Mr. Connors. I'm sure he'd love to hear your thoughts." The younger men murmured in agreement, some already walking towards the leader's house. Mason's face twisted with frustration. He couldn't back out now without admitting he was lying. Desperation flashed in his eyes and he abruptly turned away, muttering that he needed to check something. I watched from a distance, satisfied. His lie had crumbled and his credibility took a hit. That evening, Rachel relayed how the village leader dismissed Mason's complaints, stating firmly that Emma's work was beneficial and well documented. Mason had stormed off, fuming, his plan thoroughly thwarted. Later that night, Mason showed up at my door looking furious. "Why did you do that?" he demanded. "I played innocent." "Do what?" "Undermine me. You made me look like a fool." I shook my head calmly. "You did that all by yourself. I never asked Mr. Connors to check the fields. You did indirectly when you started spreading lies." His face twisted in rage. "You think you're so clever, don't you? I know what you're doing. You're trying to steal my future." I stared at him, my voice steady and low. "I'm just working hard like I always have. If that makes you feel threatened, that's your problem, not mine." He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I watched him go, my resolve solidified. He was unraveling, and I didn't need to directly confront him. His paranoia and desperation would do that for me. Mason didn't realize it yet, but he was digging his own grave. I just had to keep nudging him down the path. The next morning, news spread around the village about Mason's failed attempt to discredit me. The villagers seemed less inclined to trust him, and some even approached me expressing their support. It was working. Mason's reputation was slowly crumbling, and he had no one to blame but himself. It was time to escalate. I needed one more push to ensure the council saw him for who he truly was. The final act was approaching, and I would make sure it was a spectacle he couldn't recover from. The next few days were tense. Mason had withdrawn from public view, licking his wounds after his failed scheme. I knew he wasn't giving up. He was just regrouping, planning his next move. I needed to strike while his credibility was still shaky, and I had just the plan to do it. Word had spread about his failed attempt to discredit my irrigation system. The villagers were growing increasingly wary of his intentions, and I knew that one more major mistake on his part would completely destroy his image. To make that happen, I needed to manipulate his ambition, using his own arrogance against him. One evening, as I was cleaning up the community center after a meeting, Mr. Connors approached me with a thoughtful look on his face. "Emma, I've been considering something," he began. "With the return list approaching, we need to submit a final proposal for our village's agricultural improvements. Your irrigation system is remarkable, but I was wondering if you'd be willing to present it at the council meeting next week." I couldn't believe my luck. "Of course. I'd be honored." He nodded approvingly. "Great. I'll make sure the council knows that your work has significantly improved our crop yields. It could really boost your chances of being selected." I couldn't help but smile. This was the perfect opportunity. If Mason tried to interfere, he would only make himself look worse. The night before the meeting, I casually mentioned to Rachel that I was feeling nervous about my presentation. Knowing how gossip spread, I made sure a few others overheard as well. Sure enough, the next morning, Mason showed up at my doorstep looking far too confident for my liking. "I heard you're presenting your irrigation project to the council," he said, trying to sound casual. I nodded, keeping my voice meek. "Mr. Connors asked me to. I'm a bit worried. I've never spoken in front of so many people." He smirked. "You'll be fine. Just be honest about how you came up with the idea." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" His smile grew sharper. "You should probably mention how I helped you design it. You wouldn't want to seem like you're taking all the credit." I bit back a laugh. "But you didn't help with that project." He scoffed. "Emma, come on. You wouldn't have done any of that without my support. If you don't mention me, people might think you're ungrateful. You wouldn't want that, would you?" I forced a worried expression. "I didn't realize." He patted my shoulder. "Just remember to give credit where it's due. I'll see you at the meeting." As he left, I couldn't help but smile. Mason had just given me exactly what I needed. The council meeting was packed. Villagers had gathered to see who would be selected to return to the city. I stood near the front, my notes clutched tightly in my hands. Mason sat a few rows back, looking smug and self-assured. Mr. Connors called me to the front, introducing me as the key contributor to the village's recent agricultural success. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. I began by explaining the new irrigation system, how it worked and how it had improved the yield. The council members nodded in appreciation, taking notes as I spoke. Then I paused, pretending to look hesitant. "There's something else," I said, lowering my eyes. "I want to make sure I'm honest about the project." One of the elders encouraged me. "Go on, Emma. I glanced at Mason, who was leaning forward expectantly. Mason insisted that I give him credit for helping with the design. But, in truth, he had nothing to do with it. The room went silent. I bit my lip, feigning nervousness. He said that if I didn't mention his involvement, people might think I was ungrateful. But I can't lie to you all. The design and implementation were entirely my own, based on research I conducted with the help of the agricultural team. I'm sorry if this causes any trouble. Whispers erupted throughout the hall. Mason's face turned an alarming shade of red. One of the council members frowned. Mason, is this true? Were you trying to take credit for Emma's work? Mason shot to his feet, his face twisted with anger. She's lying. I've supported her every step of the way. She wouldn't have achieved any of this without me. Another council member raised his hand. Support is one thing, but did you actively participate in the project? Mason hesitated, realizing he had trapped himself. I gave her the motivation. She wouldn't have done it without my encouragement. Mr. Connors shook his head, disappointed. Motivation is not the same as contribution. Emma has clearly demonstrated her skills and dedication. Trying to claim her success as your own is not only dishonest but disgraceful. Mason looked around the room, desperation plain on his face. You're all biased. Emma's just trying to ruin me. The villagers murmured, unimpressed with his outburst. Someone from the back shouted, We've seen Emma working tirelessly. You were never there, Mason. Rachel stood up, crossing her arms. Emma's done nothing but improve the village. Maybe you're just jealous that she's getting recognized instead of you. The room erupted in agreement. Mason, realizing his reputation was crumbling, stormed out of the meeting hall. Later that evening I sat on my porch, feeling a mixture of relief and triumph. Rachel joined me, grinning. That was genius, she said. You played him perfectly. I chuckled. He set himself up. I just gave him the chance to expose himself. Rachel sighed. People are starting to see him for who he really is. It's about time. Just as we were settling into a comfortable silence, Mason appeared, stumbling drunkenly toward my house. I stood up, wary. You ruined me, he slurred, pointing a shaky finger at me. You made everyone think I'm a liar. I didn't respond, watching as he staggered closer. Rachel moved protectively in front of me, but I held up a hand to stop her. Mason, I said calmly, you did this to yourself. You tried to take credit for something you didn't do. You lied to the council. People aren't stupid, they saw right through you. He looked at me, his eyes filled with desperation. You're supposed to support me. You're mine. No, I replied firmly. I was never yours. You only thought I was because I let you believe it. But I'm done letting you use me. He let out a strangled yell and lunged forward, but Rachel pushed him back. He tripped over his own feet, landing in the dirt, cursing incoherently. The commotion attracted the attention of nearby villagers, and when they saw Mason on the ground, dirty and furious, they shook their heads in disgust. One of the older men, Mr. Henley, approached. Mason, go home before you make more of a fool of yourself. Mason glared at me, his voice full of spite. You think you've won, Emma? You're nothing without me. I stepped closer, my voice cold and steady. I was always more than you. I just didn't realize it back then. Now I do. Stay out of my way. He looked like he wanted to argue, but the villagers' glares silenced him. Defeated, he staggered back down the path, muttering curses. Rachel placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. It's over, Emma. He can't hurt you anymore. I nodded, watching Mason disappear into the night. He had finally fallen from the pedestal he had placed himself on. Now all that was left was to secure my return spot and leave this chapter of my life behind. The final stage was approaching, and I knew that once I left for the city, Mason would have nothing left. It was his turn to be abandoned and forgotten, just as he had tried to do to me. The morning of the final selection was crisp and clear, the sky an endless expanse of blue. I could hear the villagers gathering at the central square, murmuring with excitement and curiosity. I took a deep breath, fixing my hair and smoothing my dress. Today would be the culmination of everything I had worked for. As I made my way to the square, Rachel caught up with me, a confident smile on her face. Are you ready? She asked, her voice filled with encouragement. I nodded. More than ready. Mason was already there, standing near the front, his posture tense and his eyes narrowed. He hadn't spoken to me since the disastrous council meeting where he had tried to take credit for my irrigation project. Rumors had spread quickly about his dishonesty, and I could see the distance between him and the other villagers. Even Ava, who usually clung to his arm, was nowhere to be seen. Mr. Connors stepped forward onto the makeshift stage, holding a clipboard. His calm, authoritative voice carried over the crowd. "Thank you all for being here. Today we announce the chosen candidate for the city return spot. The decision was not made lightly, as we considered both contributions to the village and potential for future success." My heart pounded and I could feel Mason's eyes boring into the back of my head. I kept my gaze fixed on Mr. Connors, my expression composed. "The candidate we have selected," he continued, "is someone who has demonstrated not only dedication but also the ability to inspire growth and progress within our community." There was a brief pause and I could feel the tension rising. "Emma Lane, step forward." The crowd erupted into applause and cheers. Relief washed over me and I took a few steps forward, my hands trembling slightly. Mr. Connors shook my hand, smiling warmly. "Congratulations, Emma," he said. "Your hard work and innovative thinking have truly benefited us all. We believe you will represent our village well in the city." As I turned to face the villagers, I caught sight of Mason's face, ashen, his mouth agape. The reality of his loss was finally sinking in. One of the elders stepped forward. "Your dedication to the community has earned our respect, Emma. You'll do great things." I thanked them all, trying to keep my composure. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Mason pushing through the crowd, his expression wild. "This is a mistake," he shouted. "I'm supposed to be the one leaving. I've put in years of effort. She just showed off for a few months." Mr. Connors frowned, raising his hand for silence. "Mason, your actions have spoken louder than your words. You tried to undermine Emma and take credit for work that was not your own. Leadership is not about ambition alone. It's about integrity." Mason's face twisted with rage. "You're all just biased. She's manipulating you." I took a step forward, addressing the crowd. "Everyone here knows how much I've worked to improve our village. I didn't do it for recognition or to compete. I did it because I believe in this community. I've always been proud of where I come from, and I want to make sure that our village has a future." A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd and Mason's shoulders slumped. He turned to the villagers, desperation seeping into his voice. "You can't just give her everything. I deserve this," he cried out. A voice from the back of the crowd shouted, "You lost our respect when you tried to bring Emma down, Mason." Another chimed in, "We need someone who can lead without lies." Rachel stepped forward, her voice carrying over the noise. "It's time you faced reality, Mason. You're not the man you think you are. You used Emma, lied to everyone, and now you're facing the consequences." Mason looked around, realizing he had no allies left. He staggered back, shaking his head. "This isn't fair." After the announcement, as the villagers dispersed, Mason found me alone near the well. His eyes were red and his hands trembled. "How did you do it?" he whispered. I raised an eyebrow. "Do what?" "Make everyone turn against me. I was supposed to be the leader. You were supposed to support me. You loved me." I let out a bitter laugh. "Loved? I loved the idea of us, Mason. I thought you were ambitious because you wanted a better life for both of us. But you only ever thought about yourself. I see that now." He gritted his teeth. "You're just trying to punish me." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You did that all on your own. You lied, manipulated, and tried to discredit me. You took me for granted. I gave up everything for you once, but not this time." He shook his head, almost as if he couldn't comprehend my words. "We could have had it all." I looked at him, finally seeing him for who he truly was. A man consumed by his own arrogance, unwilling to take responsibility for his failures. "No, Mason. You could have had it all if you had been honest and worked hard. Instead, you chose the easy way, using others to get what you wanted. I don't owe you anything." Tears filled his eyes and he seemed on the verge of collapse. "Emma, please." I turned away, unwilling to hear any more of his pitiful pleas. "It's over, Mason. You've lost." The day of my departure arrived quickly. Rachel helped me pack, her eyes misty with both pride and sadness. "I'm going to miss you," she said, giving me a tight hug. I hugged her back, grateful for her unwavering support. I'll come back to visit. I promise. As the cart pulled up to take me to the city, a familiar figure stumbled out of the nearby alley, Mason looking disheveled and lost. He staggered toward me, his voice desperate. "Emma, don't leave me. I can't stay here without you," he cried. I met his gaze, unwavering. "You'll have to learn to stand on your own, Mason. You've spent too long leaning on others. It's time to take responsibility for your own life." His face crumpled and he sank to his knees. I climbed onto the cart without looking back. As the wheels began to turn, I heard his voice one last time shouting my name. But I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. I had given him more chances than he deserved, and I wasn't going to waste another moment on someone who had spent his life tearing me down. As the village faded from view, I felt a sense of freedom like never before. I was moving forward, finally living for myself. The city awaited, and with it, endless possibilities. In my heart, I knew that Mason would never change. His ambition would always blind him to the truth, and his pride would be his undoing. But I didn't need to worry about him anymore. I had my own life to live, and for the first time I was in control. A new chapter was beginning, and I was ready to embrace it, without Mason, without regret, and with the unbreakable resolve to never be anyone's pawn again. The end.